Kurt Crone, the Faith Bible Church right here in DeSoto, Texas, who will lead us in our invocation. After which we'll have our pledges, item 1C, pledge students from our Wings campus, and our item 1D, district mission statement read into our hearing by Trustee Hooper. Let's stand for a word of prayer.
This ISD. We're grateful for our public servants. We're grateful for their taking time out of their schedules, our trustees taking time out of their schedules to dedicate themselves to the time it takes to lead this district. We're grateful for our administration. Father, we pray that you would give them the character and the vision, the direction, and the ability they need to lead our students and our teachers effectively. We're grateful for those classroom teachers who mentor and model what it means to be a lifelong learner before our students. And we're grateful for our students. Lord, we just pray that you would protect them, continue to allow DeSoto ISD to be a good place to raise children and the ISD to be a great place to educate children. We tonight, Father, come before you, and we are not going to call down fire and brimstone on steel, but Father, if it be your will, we'd love to bring home a win this coming weekend. And we ask all this in Jesus' name, whose birth the world celebrates this month. Amen.
Start reading. Our pledge students this evening are Christian Jones. Christian is a 14-year-old 8th grader at McCowan Middle School. He is the son of Nina Williams and Dexter Smith. His hobbies are athletics and reading, and after graduating from college, Christian would like to become a transportation engineer. Our other pledge student is Jeremiah Nelson. He is a 12-year-old 7th grader at DeSoto West Middle School. He is the son of Precious Nelson. His hobbies are athletics and reading, and he would like to enter the field of sports medicine upon graduating from college.
She's going to get a picture first.
You have to shake her hand. Yeah, all kinds of things to do.
Thank you, man.
Are the parents of these young men here? Would you please stand and be recognized?
DeSoto ISD will prepare each student academically and socially to become a problem solver and productive citizen for the 21st century global society.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper, for reading our mission statement. Thank you to our wonderful students for leading us in the pledges tonight. Really appreciate you guys and your parents for coming out on tonight. And thank you, Pastor Crone, for the short notice and being here with us tonight to lead us in prayer, as well as for the added benefit of prayer for Saturday evening as well. Item 1E calls for us to read our emergency statement. I'll read that into your hearing at this time. DeSoto ISD takes the safety of our students, employees, and guests very seriously. In an emergency situation such as a fire, please exit the building using one of the marked exits unless directed otherwise. Should we experience inclement weather such as a tornado, we'll ask all guests to move quickly into the interior of the building, away from all doors and windows. We'll monitor the situation at all times, as well as coordinate with local emergency responders regarding when the situation has passed. Thank you. Item 1F calls for us to establish a quorum. We do have a quorum here tonight, so we're ready for action. And item 1G calls for our highlighted school, which is our great principal, Mr. Webb, as well as Mr. Lewis's campus.
Tutorials and one-on-one tutorials. Our teachers are working hard so these students can and will be successful on their end of course exam. We also teach our students through computer program Edgenuity. We had a representative. He came to give our students information on financial aid. He did a follow-up to make sure that they are being successful. Cedar Valley also attended our school to give our students information on pathways and pipeline program. The Army was here to let them know how to enlist. The Navy also appeared at Wings to give the students valuable information. We took our first tour to Cedar Valley. Here at Cedar Valley, the students gained valuable information that let them know that they too can attend college. One of the programs again is Pathways and Pipelines. It's a technical program where the students can receive a degree or a technical certificate. The students had a great time and they represented DeSoto ISD well. Lincoln Tech also visit our school to give our students information on how they can attend Lincoln Tech. It is something that our students is eligible to do. We want our students to be ready for the careers. We want them to be ready for the workforce. We worked on resumes and also we had the students working on interviewing skills so that they can be ready for the workforce. Our students are very interested and they have represented us well. Here at Wings, we will gain success. Hello and welcome to Wings. We have small group tutorials, one-on-one tutorials.
All right, thank you so much for our highlighted school. We have those principals in the house tonight. If you don't mind standing to be recognized, as well as anyone that's on that campus with you as well. Thank you for all that you do for our students every day. We're excited about the things going on there at your campuses. Board, that brings us to item 1H, which is special recognitions. We'll take special recognitions 1H and 1I, celebrations together. Trustee Moncrief.
Holiday card, Holiday card art contest winners. DeSoto ISD recently held the annual holiday art contest among district students. Over 200 entries were submitted for the contest. The top 10 finalists and grand prize winner were selected by the ISD staff and Arts Commission members before the Thanksgiving break. Top entries are on display in the DeSoto ISD Instructional Support Center for the month of December. The grand prize winner will receive a $50 gift card from our partner, the DeSoto Arts Commission. Congratulations to the finalists and the grand prize winner. Our grand prize winner this year is Emmanuel Omirin from DeSoto High School. As the grand prize winner, Emmanuel will receive a framed version of his artwork and a $50 gift certificate for art supplies. Our finalists also include Nathaniel Cervantes from DeSoto High School, Kevin Antonio Venancio from Amber Terrace Discovery and Design Early Childhood Academy. Yes, that's our pre-K school. Darren Oliver II from DeSoto High School. Tamara Dunbar from DeSoto High School. Brian Uzwegbunum from DeSoto High School. Claudia Camargo from DeSoto High School. Brian Gutierrez at Woodridge Elementary. Marcos Arkansas from DeSoto High School. Esmeralda Baron from Ruby Young Elementary, and Soraya Stern from Northside Elementary.
Emmanuel was not able to be with us tonight. He had he's doing driver's ed, and you know, if you miss driver's ed, they count it against you. But we did want to give everyone an opportunity, if you could hold up his award-winning picture, which is pretty awesome. He's an awesome student. As a matter of fact, this is a random selection, and this young man won for the second year in a row. He's a very, very talented young man, so very proud of him.
Are any other winners here? Any other finalists for the art contest? Thank you. Now on to our spelling bee winners. Congratulations to Ruby Young Elementary fifth grader Abiba Moncrief for winning the DeSoto ISD spelling bee. After 13 rounds of competition, Abiba correctly spelled multicellular to finalize the win. Abiba beat out 8 other finalists from DeSoto ISD elementary and middle schools in grades 4 through 8 and will now compete in the county level spelling bee in February to attempt to advance to the 59th annual Dallas Morning News Regional Bee in March. West Middle School's Royce Texada, last year's winner, will be the DeSoto ISD alternate for the county bee. Our campus spelling bee winners are from Cockrell Hill Elementary, Alexis Daniels, Moats Elementary, Natalie Espiricueta, Northside Elementary, Caitlin English, Ruby Young Elementary, Abiba Moncrief, The Meadows Elementary, Sheldon Kilgore, Woodridge Elementary, Madison Thomas, East Middle School, Keziah Kilgore, McCowan Middle School, Spirit Brown, West Middle School, Royce Texada. And if we could have Abiba and Royce, I see both of you here, and anybody else? Any of the other finalists or winners, are you here? Celebrations. Choir members advance to pre-area round. The DeSoto High School Choral Department is proud to announce our students did an outstanding job auditioning November 29, 2016 for the Texas All-State Choir. The following students will be advancing to area auditions in January after placing in the top 5 tonight at pre-area auditions held at W.T. White High School. Juliana Simonfalvi, 3rd chair, soprano 1, 9th grade. Brayla Cook, 1st chair, alto 1, 11th grade. Montavion McKinney, 4th chair, tenor 1, 11th grade. Samuel Orta, 3rd chair, bass 1, 10th grade. Byron Hanspar Jr., 5th chair, bass 2, 11th grade. Those selected now advance to area auditions on January 7th, 2017 at Midway High School in Waco, Texas, which is the final phase of the Texas All-State Choir selection process. Are any of our students here? Employee receives Coordinator Award from Edwards Risk. Congratulations to DeSoto ISD Wellness Coordinator Wendy Robinson for receiving the Edwards Risk Management prestigious Fall 2016 Working Well Coordinator Award for Vivacious Vocalist. Ms. Robinson schedules the district's employee wellness activities, including sports leagues, fitness opportunities, nutritionists, and wellness resources. She receives a special certificate from Edwards Risk Management and a jacket in recognition of her award. Volleyball players earn all district honors. Congratulations to the following players who earned District 7 6A all district honors. All district superlatives. Blocker of the Year, Kyra Honeycutt, DeSoto High School. Newcomer of the Year, Jada Allen, DeSoto High School. First team, Jada Starlin and Taylor Alexander, both from DeSoto High School. Mock trial teams advance. DeSoto High School entered 2 teams in the YMCA District 5 Mock Trial Conference held November 19th at Duncanville High School, and both teams qualified for the state event held in January at the YMCA Texas Youth and Government Conference in Austin. The teams received praise for their performance during the competition, and one student was asked to serve as a judge at the state competition. Congratulations to these amazing DeSoto Eagles and their sponsor, Xavier Mitchell, who teaches criminal justice at the school. These students are Eric Adejuan, Jamira Lewis, Sedaria Lewis, Jessica Smith. Courtney Mathis, would you please stand as I call your name? Sorry about that. Courtney Mathis, Jaira Ragsdale, Nisha Taylor Scott White, Caitlin Virgil, Zipporah Ritchie, Ashley Morris, Jamia Lewis, Terry Jackson, Taj Hightower, Gerald Wise, Quaylon Logan, Brayman McGilbra, and Ricky Hewitt.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. 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 You know, congratulations. 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 Congratulations.
Get you to bring them to the courthouse sometime. We'll talk about it. Okay.
Congratulations, sir.
I think. Oops. We have one more. DeSoto High School students named State Farm STEM video winners. Congratulations to DeSoto High School STEM students Stephen Macias and Cordeja Walker, who have been named winners in the Tech Titan STEM Video Challenge hosted by State Farm. Stephen's video was selected for outstanding work in the category of 3D and 4D printing, while Cordea's video won in the category of robotics. Each student was awarded a $1,000 prize. In addition to the monetary prizes, both students will be working with the State Farm Tech Titan workforce to prepare their videos for widespread distribution throughout the nation to encourage other students to pursue STEM careers. Are those students here?
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
That's it.
Some kind of. All right, definitely have a lot to be excited about here in DeSoto ISD. Congratulations to all those that have been acknowledged and recognized this month. Board, that brings us to our item 1J, which is citizens' participation. We do have need for that tonight, and so I will read into your hearing statement regarding this portion of our agenda. We've designated a portion of our meeting to hear from members of our community. This is not the forum for complaints. We have procedures for hearing complaints, and those must be exhausted before matters brought to the board. This is a posted public meeting of the board, not a meeting of the public. In accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, all meetings are open to the public and media. The board may hear some matters in executive session. However, any decision must be performed in an open meeting. In addition, we are not permitted to discuss items not on the agenda. Non-posted items may be considered for a future meeting, and no presentation shall exceed 5 minutes, and delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their view. You're respectfully reminded to address the board and not the audience during your presentation. Our one card tonight comes from Mr. Eric Dejuan. Please step to the microphone, state your name for the record. We have your address, so there's no need to provide that.
Good evening. My name is Eric Dejuan. Members of the board, I just wanted to humbly say thank you on behalf of the mock trial. We do feel your gratitude, and we do thank you for putting us on a display to be recognized, because a lot of things go into DeSoto, especially with us going to state and winning state. I received it and speaking in existence, but for us doing what we do, I do want you to understand that you guys are appreciated, and I hope that you all have a happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. Board, that brings us to item 1K, which is to conduct public hearings on 2015-2016 TAPR, or Texas Academic Performance Report. Time is now 6:54, and we will open this public hearing. Anyone that wishes to speak on this topic, if you don't mind, just step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you may begin. Seeing and hearing no one wishing to speak on this topic, on this subject, we will close the public hearing at 6:55. Board, that brings us to our second item on the agenda, which is our consent items. Items 2A through I are listed and posted on your agenda. And so I'll entertain a motion if there be any at this time. Trustee Gold.
I would like for items A, which is Hart International, G, District Innovation Resolution, and H, Spanish textbooks to be pulled for discussion.
Board, you heard the recommendation of trustee Gold to pull those for separate consideration. Is there any objection to that? Seeing and hearing none, board, for consideration right now, we have item 2B, 2C, 2D, 2E, 2F, and 2I. I'll entertain a motion if there be any from the board on those items.
Move to approve those named consent items.
Second.
We have a motion by trustee Hooper to approve as presented, a second by trustee Moncrief to approve the listed items. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. And motion carries 5-0. Board, that brings us to consent item 2A, which is our Heart International Education Services, or From the Heart, Gear Up. Trustee Moncrief, not trustee Moncrief. We've had this for the week, so definitely, if there are any questions, we can speak directly to the information that's been provided. I'll begin with trustee Gold.
Just a couple of things to clarify. Let's see, where do we start? I guess let's start with the fact, point number 2, provide a minimum of 12 hours of targeted professional development for administrators, counselors, and teachers in the following areas: culturally relevant pedagogy and creating a college-going culture. I thought we already did that as part of the Gear Up grant, and I guess I really don't understand what we're spending $125,000 extra dollars to do. So can somebody address exactly? I mean, I read the information that was provided. It just wasn't enough information for me to understand why we need to spend $125,000.
It's not new, but that is the mechanism in which we do what is a part of Gear Up. So Gear Up can't do it by themselves. You have to have a vendor.
Support.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just to support. Have we used the same program in the past, or is this a different program than what we have already put into place?
We've used them in the past.
Okay, so this is just to continue the contract that we've already had with them?
That is correct.
Because this is new. I didn't know for sure if this is what we were already using. So I'm assuming if we're going to buy it again, it's been very, very successful. It's the best out there.
I think it's necessary to continue collecting data, and that was one of the things that we had talked about earlier, is really compiling the data on some of our programs. They are somewhat new, but they do add to the value of what we're looking for as far as helping our students be prepared for the future. So it was written, that part of it was written into the grant, so we needed to find a second party to provide those services.
Okay, it's not something that we can do in-house with the staff that's already in place or the teachers that are already in place?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Okay. And then the second part that was number 3, conduct a comprehensive program evaluation of student perspectives and outcomes. I guess it was number 4, excuse me. Number 4, compile a report detailing ongoing recommendations. Kind of seemed like that we had already bought a program to track all of these things.
No, ma'am. So all grants requires an evaluation piece. All grants require an evaluation piece. So written into pretty much all of our grants, we write into an evaluation piece. So that helps us when we go back out for renewal of a grant or something like that, that we have the data to support, what we're doing. So all grants require evaluation piece.
Yeah,
So
I
you
know
always
that.
set aside a certain percentage of your grant funding for evaluation.
Okay. Okay. And so, last question. The professional development that is going to take place for the teachers and the administrators, the staff, this is already part of the in-service days that are already built into the calendar?
That's correct.
Thank you, trustee Gold. Trustee Daniel.
I just have one question. It's on the back page where it says DeSoto High School, 200 teachers, $65,000. And then it says 12 hours job embedded. Well, actually, it says intensive job embedded professional development. When does that happen, and what does job embedded mean?
That would actually take place during the school day, so we will have coaches and actually, as I said, during the school day, they'll come out and help and provide professional development.
For example, if you were doing something in a law class, you would have a lawyer or somebody to come out and also support teachers in that process, in what it would take to be a lawyer. So if you had an engineering class, if students were in engineering, you'd bring out an engineer to talk about, so that's the job embedded part of that.
Okay, so it's during the regular school year,
Yes, ma'am.
the regular school day.
Yes, ma'am. So it'd be like co-teaching.
Okay.
Close.
Trustee Hooper.
So I'm paying attention to, so this is an up to amount. So have we actually exhausted in, I guess in the previous years, have we actually exhausted that amount, the 125,000? Because it says up to, so it suggests that, have we actually spent $125,000 or even 125,000 on this?
Go ahead, Mr. Ryan.
Because I was just trying to figure out, based on the question that was previously asked, you know, when is that, 12 hours of PD actually being provided? And is actual 200 teachers actually, benefiting from this? And are they the ones providing the service? I listened to the example that the superintendent gave. So if we're talking about, let's like a law class, so they would be the ones that would actually facilitate bringing in a lawyer to provide, professional development or some type of guided instruction on how to teach that class? I'm just trying to better understand it.
Sure. If I may, let me go back to the dollar figure. When Gear Up began, we came to the board and requested permission to spend up to $75,000 with From the Heart. And in that agenda item, we said that we were going to conduct an evaluation and that we would come back to the board and make a recommendation. So this is the recommendation. And additionally, dealing with the dollar amount, our fiscal year begins September 25th. So we have to make an appropriation and anticipate if we were to begin at scale, say in October, how much would we spend up to the end of the academic year? And then how much would we need to begin the year so that we're not starting again in October? So it was an intentional intent on our part to say, what is it going to cost to finish out the 2015 or 16-17 year and begin the 2017-18 school year? So with respect to job embedded in professional development, like we did with MIT, we believe that it is important to have a coach or an expert to observe the teacher in the classroom. Several reasons. When we extend the teacher's contract, then we get into having to pay stipends, and that's just additional money. We found the most robust outcome is to have an expert to observe them during class.
So the person observing them is actually a staff member of this vendor?
Exactly.
Okay. And then I'm assuming that the information, they report back to either Gear Up and/or the administrative team?
Exactly. And it becomes a part of our annual performance report.
Okay. Good stuff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ryan.
Sure.
Thank you, Board. Are there any further questions? Trustee Daniel.
So the money for this comes from the Gear Up grant?
That's correct.
All right, seeing and hearing no further questions as it relates to this item, we'll take this item at this time. So item 2A, which is the HART International Education Services from the HART as it relates to Gear Up. I'll entertain a motion on that if there be any from the board at this time.
Move adoption.
I second.
We have a motion by Trustee Hooper to approve adoption as presented. We have a second by Trustee Gold. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And motion carries 5-0. Board, if you will allow me a little privilege and a little leeway at this time, I do want to recognize we have one student who's a phenomenal, gifted student over at our Amber Terrace campus, our preschool campus, and we want to recognize him as he was one of the finalists in the holiday card art contest. And so we want to recognize him and his family at this time. Trustee Moncrief, I'll yield the floor to you.
Es familia de Kevin Antonio Venancio. Ven acá, por favor.
I'm not sure. I don't think were there certificates? There weren't certificates. Were there?
I don't know if
Were there certificates for the certificate? Oh, there were. It's over here.
Yes, this is here.
Here it is. There you go.
I tried.
Okay, so board, picking up where we left off, we are at item 2, which is our consent items, and we'll take up at this time item 2G, District of Innovation Resolution. And so at this time, I'll yield the floor to Trustee Gold.
I guess I just need, I've heard Dr. Harris explain the District of Innovation a couple of times this last week, and I guess I just really need him to say that again to us as a board. Kind of your overview of why the high points of why District of Innovation is a really good idea for us to explore.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the background information that we have so that those who may be listening. So school district in the state of Texas may now seek designation as a District of Innovation under Texas Education Code 12A. Such a designation allows the district to access exemption from certain requirements of state law. Essential innovation plans are about local control. A District of Innovation may exempt from certain requirements imposed by state law. These exemptions may include a uniform start date, minimum minutes of instruction, the 90% attendance rule, teacher contracts, benefits, and appraisals, campus decision-making restrictions, certain budgeting requirements, and some student discipline laws. A District of Innovation cannot seek exemption, which I think is important to know, as for example, how they do elected board of trustees, powers and duties of school boards, superintendents, and principals. We're not exempt from reporting PEANS information. We're not exempt from certain curriculum parts and graduation requirements. Nor are we exempt from academic accountability and student assessment. Financial accountability, which means our first rating and those other financial ratings are still in play. We're not exempt from open meetings and public purchasing laws. School districts are eligible for designation, as a District of Innovation if the district's most recent academic performance rating was at least acceptable. So we as a district see this as an opportunity for us to look at some things, put together a committee, because it's actually driven by a committee of teachers and local residents. That committee is put together, and we decide together what is the best item for a District of Innovation that we would like to look at. Currently, right now, over 90% of school districts that have gone through District of Innovation, one of the things, 90% of them had looked at the calendar start time. As you know, there's a lot of discussion right now because this year, the calendar will not start until the last Monday in August, which actually puts everybody a week late. So right now, school districts who have not adopted this are really wrestling, and they're getting a lot of parent complaints about school districts starting so late. But by law, we cannot start until that fourth Tuesday of August. And so that's one of the things that's driving a lot of school districts right now, because there's so much control that right now that the state has over districts versus charter schools. And basically, this allows us to have some of the same flexibility that charter schools actually have at this time.
I did go online and look up, I only looked up three. Red Oak, Mansfield, and Forney are the only three that I really had time to research. And they're the closest, I think, of all of the ones that I saw in our proximity. It's interesting that you say that. Especially Forney was very upfront on the fact that they needed to put the instructional days at the front of the calendar.
For testing.
For testing. They actually said that.
Yes.
And Mansfield alluded to it, but they didn't come right out and say it like Forney did. And for that reason, I could understand, because I know as a teacher, after those first 2 weeks of May, when all the testing is done and all that stuff, it's kind of like everybody's like collapsed.
That's
because they're tired. And so why have 4 more weeks of school or 3 more, whatever, it would end up 3 weeks usually on your calendar
Right.
after the testing, when you need that at the front for instructional days. So I understand that part of it totally, totally. I guess that was my main concern, is about what is really the driving force. And then when I figured out that that was most of it right there, was about instructional days.
That's
For
correct.
most of it. I understood that. I guess I'm not opposed to going, to researching it and seeing about all the good things that it could bring to our district. I think that that would be a good thing for us to explore. I do think that we need to be careful that there's a couple of things that could be thrown in there that I probably would not approve of, and that would be extra days of in-service for teachers. One calendar had like 2 whole weeks of in-service and staff development and meetings and stuff for teachers before school even started. I guess I'm not opposed to that if it was very beneficial to what would happen in the classroom. I do know that some in-services, after 40 years in education, some in-services cannot be beneficial to a teacher, and I'm totally against wasting people's time. So we just need to be really careful about how we would structure that. 2 whole weeks of in-service.
So you got to remember that there's a certain amount of days that you must get in. Without getting those days in, then you could possibly impact your budget. So you got to be very careful about that, about, number of instructional days.
Okay, so that would add to our budget if we required the teachers to work 5 extra days, say, then we would pay for those. It's not part of their contract. We're not going to roll that into the amount of money that they're going to be paid. We're going to compensate them for that. I guess that's what I'm making sure. Like if we added days to their calendar, we will compensate for those days.
And so we wouldn't be adding days. I think what you have to be really careful about is that you don't eliminate days for students. So you're paid so much per students. And so you don't want to get into eliminating those type of days. But a teacher contract is for X amount of days. So, what is it, 187 days. So it's 187 days. So you got plenty of days in there that's not, but I think it all depends on where, right now, if I were to ask teachers, what do they ask for? Because they're building the calendar right now. Most teachers are saying they need more staff development days. So, but once again, it would be up to teachers. Teachers and the committee would drive what that is. And so whoever serves on the committee, as I always say, when you pick people to serve on a committee from a campus, you almost got to go with what that committee comes up with. And so, just like the calendar, working the calendar, when that calendar comes out, I know all 800 and whatever teachers are employees, 1,100, whatever it is, probably not going to be all happy with the calendar, but, you put a committee in charge to come up with a calendar, and then they put it out there, and we live with it, good, bad, or indifferent. We got to go with it. So, and every campus has an opportunity to appoint someone to serve on a committee. And so, be careful how you choose to serve on a committee.
Yeah, and I know we've just spent a lot of time talking about the calendar. This is just an added benefit for us to give us the flexibility.
That's correct.
For that conversation later. So as it relates to District of Innovation, I see some additional lights, but I want to finish up with Trustee Gold if she has any additional questions. And if not, we'll go to Trustee Moncrief and then Trustee Hooper. Trustee Gold.
Were you finished?
One more thing, one more point. I guess I just want to make sure that it is committee-led, not district administration-led. Because I know, I've been on committees before where we're the committee, but we're told what to think on that committee, or we're told how to, what it would be best, and we really don't have the flexibility to make the decisions inside the committee. So I guess I just want to make sure that it is committee-led.
I mean, that might have been I think everyone that's served on a committee since I've been here, they know that I give them, I have no input on calendar. If it's a committee, it's a committee decision. If it's a vote about a majority, it's a majority vote. So I don't know about in the past, but all I can speak to is.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Trustee Moncrief.
Oh, what, and I'm just gonna throw it out there, while we're talking about what committees should or shouldn't be told, tell the committee, do not do professional development and parent-teacher conference on the same day. It is not a win for kids, and it's not a win for the parents. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. However,
You want me to tell them?
please,
Okay.
you pass that message on. Now, the thing I took away from this, and I understand the need for flexibility on instructional days and all that, but the big red thing for me was the teacher certification, because I know that now the certification that we have in place is really a test of minimal competency. So I want to make it clear that whatever we're doing, whatever the advisory council or whoever is going to be reviewing and trying to come up with the things that we're trying to innovate, let's not mess with that. Let's keep it real clear. Teachers need to be certified because it is just a test of minimal competency. And while charter schools get to have non-certified people, I don't think that should be applicable for this district or really any. So I just want to make sure that we don't even go down that road.
Right. So the teacher certification piece is not, so as a teacher in a classroom, a specific core curriculum, you're still required to have a certification. This falls more in the line of like CTE.
In career stuff.
In careers where, you may have someone, if you're trying to go out and find someone that's certified in air conditioning and I don't know, plumbing or something. You're probably not gonna have somebody that was doing air conditioning, plumbing, decide to go back, I'm gonna get my teacher certification, then I'm gonna come back and teach. That's probably not gonna happen. So, but the state does give you a leeway. If I've been in air conditioning refrigeration for 20 years, then the district can certify that person and provide them with the staff development that they need so that they can be successful in a classroom.
Okay.
So those are the areas in which this is designed to really impact. You're still required to have certified teachers.
Okay.
And matter of fact, the district also, even with that, the district policy says also that we must have certified teachers.
And while we're also talking about instructional days, let's not get crazy and try to start school in July again. I'm just saying, crazy things can happen when we start messing around with stuff.
Thank you, Trustee Moncrief. Trustee Hooper.
Well, I think one of the biggest things is, it does create flexibility. And like some of those districts that Trustee Gold mentioned earlier, you get to choose what areas, number one, that you want to affect. So whether it's, the calendar, or what have you, you get to decide, what it is that you want. In reference to the plan, I just want to make sure that we get to decide how long the plan is in effect. So must it be in effect for 5 years? Or can we put a time certain on it and then build in reevaluation? I know that it says that revisions can be made along the way, but can we, put it into effect for a period that does not extend to 5 years? I know it says up to 5 years. But like, let's say, do we have the flexibility to say 3 years, we'll evaluate this and then determine on whether we are going to continue? Or is the 5 years a hard thing? So,
Right. I'm sorry. So, I'm getting old, I might forget what
go
you were
ahead.
doing.
I understand.
So, remember, the plan is a district plan. So it doesn't require TEA approval, it doesn't require the commissioners approval or anything like that. It is a district plan. So how we decide, all this says is, we don't need to go back and redo a whole nother plan again. The plan can be modified and readjust those things. That means that we don't have to go through this process again for 5 years.
And then I like the fact that it suggests almost a supermajority for the 7 board member boards in order to approve. So, of course, if we ride down that road, then obviously there needs to be significant buy-in, and I appreciate them putting that safeguard in. In reference to the certifications, which is similar to what Dr. Harris said, I think part of that, well, I know part of the thinking behind that was behind those career-focused things, as well as even some of the, non-core things. Like, for example, we've been struggling to try to get strings and orchestra and, professionally trained people in those realms. And, number one, the amount of people that are teachers, that are certified school teachers, that are orchestra, that actually perform in an orchestra, they probably on my hand. And so it frees you up to kind of explore some of those options in those realms. I seriously doubt that even anybody on the committee would affect the core curriculum piece. But I do like when they initially came out with this about being able to expose kids to different practitioners in different realms. I think also I heard some information about the college dual credit kind of thing with college professors, and this, I know that there was some conversation about that. I didn't pay much attention, but I know that kind of came up in the conversation about districts of innovation. So, I mean, I'm interested to see kind of what the plan evolves, but I definitely, appreciate the fact that it will be a, teacher-driven, and, those people that are actually on the ground will be heavy in the process. I do think that, in decisions, sometimes it is important to make sure, not necessarily to dictate decisions, but to make sure that everybody understands that in their decisions, there are ramifications to certain decisions. We explored this conversation when we were talking about the sick bank and stuff like that, and not to mix apples and oranges, but sometimes we have to protect people from their own selves. We had this conversation about the calendar. The calendar committee, they all decided on the calendar, then all of a sudden, they noticed that it was a football game, parent conference, and something else was the same day. Well, 80% of the district decided on this calendar. It just wasn't until a week before that everybody realized what the repercussions were. So, you know, I get the thing about not telling them and being bullied or whatever the situation, but, you know, sometimes people need to know. It is democracy, but democracy has consequences when you don't, you know, educate yourselves on all of the ramifications down the line. So I'm excited about what might bring in, you know, again, it's very clear that the plan requires a supermajority in terms of if we decide to enact it. So, you know, I don't think it hurts to see, you know, what benefit we try to provide to our students, and if we don't think it works, then we say no.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Trustee Gant.
Just a couple of points. One thing is, I think in considering this, kind of clarify what Mr. Hooper was speaking of, you know, maybe we should just consider, once it's presented and when it comes up for a vote, maybe we should consider a year, maybe no more than 2 years at a time. That way, we're given an opportunity to try it. If we like it, it looks like it's going well, then we can bring it back the next year. Just for example, if we try it for a year and there's no major catastrophes, it seems like it's working, it's good for our kids, it's good for staff, then it can come back to the board and then we can approve it for multiple years, you know, at that point. The other point is the board will be making the final decision. So if there is a committee that's put in place, which obviously will be, the final decision, as most decisions, are held at this board table. So, and I say that so Ms. Gold, you know you have the opportunity, if there's something out there that you don't like, or if you have a concern in reference to what there was something discussed at the committee and there's something you really wanted pointed out, the final decision is going to be made here. And the other reason I say that is I don't want the committee to think that in their committee meeting they're going to make a decision and that's the final decision, and then they come here and we decide on something different. So I just want to give that clarity and understand that once it comes to this table, the board makes the final decision, and that's final. So just a couple of points.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. Trustee Daniel.
I only have a couple of things to say. I'm not sure that teachers want more staff development, but they want teacher-specific, subject-specific staff development. But I really think they need more planning time without meetings during their planning days. Another thing, on the strategic planning committee that we had last spring and we adopted their plan, if we adopt this, we need to be sure that whoever's on the committee knows what that strategic plan was and doesn't mess with the goals of that strategic plan.
Good point, Ms. Daniel, because the whole idea of doing a district of innovation is to take your plan and see how do you enhance your plan through the district of innovation. You're absolutely right. That's how it's designed. That's the way it's designed to do.
Thank you, Trustee Daniel. Trustee Hooper.
Yeah, and I don't want any confusion. I'm actually intrigued by the concept. I just wanted us to make sure that the window of opportunity for us to reevaluate was there. But, you know, some very clear things that, you know, need to be said and should be considered. There's a war on public education.
Absolutely.
There's a war on public education. And in order for us to compete against vouchers and charter schools, which is a part of this war on public education, you know, we're going to have to be able to do some things a little different to be able to compete in that world. The other thing is I must remind us when we talk about one of our pride and joys now in terms of the dual language with our Mandarin Chinese. I must remind this board that we talked about doing that, 3 years ago. It took us a year and a half to find somebody. And so I don't know you or how many friends that you have that are certified teachers that teach Mandarin Chinese. But it's those types of things that makes it extremely challenging. But as we saw in every presentation that we've had, how much benefit that has provided to our kids. When you see, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, when you see a whole bunch of minority young kids, or young kids period, that are excited about learning Chinese, like, that's beautiful. And so had we not been able to provide that opportunity, then I would think that we would have greatly deserved them. But that's not just Chinese. I mean, we struggle trying to find Spanish teachers. But this gives us a lot more flexibility in those types of realms with some of the magnet programs that we do have in our elementary schools and our early learning programs. And so, I'm excited about what it can provide for those. But I do have some caution that Trustee Moncrief also, I'm sure, shares, as many of the rest of you. There are some very traditional values of public school that I don't want torn out. And so, but I'm sure that the superintendent, his team, as well as this board, is very aware of those things also. But I do think that this is an opportunity to really help us to become a player, and to also give us the ability to, compete with state testing, whatever that's going to look like going forward. I mean, I like the adding the instructional days on the front end because everybody who's ever been in the classroom tries to figure out what happens at the end of the school year after state testing, especially if you're on a high school campus. Those kids are done, and that's about all they're going to give to you for the rest of the school year, especially if they're seniors. So I'm looking forward to moving forward and seeing how we proceed.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Dr. Harris.
Just very quickly. So we will develop a committee. The board basically appoints committee, so we'll have so many teachers, so many people. But let me just say this, that committee, and I heard what the board says, but, we want to be careful that we understand that we're going to put a committee to work. And oftentimes, people will say, if somebody else going to make a decision, why should I serve on a committee? So I want to caution us about that as well. Why would I serve on a committee when I know that it may? So that is why they have it structured a certain way. Okay, so if you say, well, I need 50% of teachers serving on that committee, and if 50% of those teachers come back and say, this is what I would like to have, and we bring it to the board, and the board says, I don't like that. I don't know what message we would be sending to a committee that the board approves. I mean, that makes sense there, so.
Absolutely. And
So
I
we'll
think,
bring it to you, and you guys can decide to do that.
right, I think I see Trustee Gant one again. I think we've had that discussion a number of times, a great number of times. I think we're, that's clear. Trustee Gant.
Well, I hope I was not misunderstood, because this board, ever since I've been here, has had a lot of respect for what a committee brings to us, in their participation and the time and effort that they invest. But the point that I was making is the final decision is made by the board. That is a fact, whether we take that or whether we make some changes. But it is also a fact that I don't want the committee to think whatever we decide here, the board's just going to rubber stamp it. I mean, because there may be something in there that needs to be addressed. So I'm not saying that we would ever disregard anything the committee says, because that's That committee, the people that serve on those committees are the spokespeople for the district, the community, whatever have you, but they also need to understand that as a board, we're responsible for making that decision, and whether that's a good decision or a bad decision, it falls on us. So if that were not the case, and if we were not being held accountable, then the decision shouldn't come to us. The committee should make their report, it's all good, and everybody's happy. So in no way am I saying that we will not ever disrespect what's brought to us, but the facts are the facts. We are held accountable for making that final decision, and I can't think of anybody that's sitting up here that would completely and totally disregard any effort or hard work or input that anyone would put into anything like that that's brought to us. So I just want to make sure that I'm not misunderstood.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. Trustee Gold.
I just want to make sure that I'm understood on this point, just like Mr. Gant wanted to make sure that he was understood, is that I think that there are a lot of things that are happening in our district that are awesome. Don't misunderstand that. But I do think there are some programs and some things that are not up to 100%. And I know that it's real hard for any district to be at 100% on every avenue. I think there's some things, the fine arts program, football team, a bunch of stuff that we're doing really, really good. But I was very concerned about some of the things that I saw in this TARP report that we're going to be discussing next, that maybe we're not doing adequately. And so I don't want the plan for the District of Innovation to take precedent over going back and making sure that every, the ISTEAM, the magnet program, anything that we have in place is not getting the attention that it needs by those teachers or district personnel. I noticed that there were principals that needed to be on that committee, as well as teachers, administrators at the district level. And I know that sometimes we start something else, and it takes time away from what they, help me, Ms. Dan, but it takes time away from what they are involved in right now. And I don't want that to be misunderstood. I think everybody's working very hard. They're working at 100%. And I guess I'm worried that we add one more thing to anybody's plate, a principal's, the high school principal's plate, any of these administrators that are sitting over here, we add one more thing to them. Are we going to be then neglecting something else that needs their attention? Does that make sense? I just want to make sure that this isn't going to be so time-consuming and so important that we get it done that something else gets neglected in any way. Am I clear on that?
Thank you, Trustee Gold. Yeah. And I know, I think everyone's got in what they want to say with this, and I think administration, you've seen the amount of time that we've put into this. We know it's listed under consent, but it's very much important to this board that we do this and do it correctly. Board, we're about to go into our board continuing education hours and what we've accumulated this year. And one of the things that you all know that we're reminded of every year when we go to get that continuing education is the role and responsibility of the board and administration in a way that we say we want a light bulb, and I'm going to use the same one they use, textbook, right? We need lights at the building. And they tell us, okay, here are the options for that light that you said you want at the building. And as Trustee Gant clearly articulated, they're going to come back to us and say, hey, based on what you said you wanted us to do, put a light in, these are the lights we have to put up. And at that time, in this instance, it's going to take a supermajority, as Trustee Hooper mentioned. It'll take 5 out of the 7 to say, we'll go with that light. But this just simply enhances the opportunity that administration, our teachers have to have every tool necessary to compete and to complete the vision that we have set in our district. And so I think that everyone's comments have been well received, but I would stress this in addition to everything that everyone said, Dr. Harris. that this committee knows that this may very much be a back and forth in a sense of suggestions, especially, as Trustee Hooper mentioned, you need buy-in from the 5 that will be voting ultimately to approve. So let's make sure that we are open as a committee and open as a board to work together in collaboration to make sure that at the end of the day, we're serving students. And has been mentioned before, we know the all-out assault on public education has already begun and will continue. And we want to make sure that when there's a comparison of DeSoto ISD and Charter XYZ, that we not only stand shoulders above what they're offering, but that we're able to offer everything they offer and take it to another level. And so, guys, this is just us approving to give us the option and the ability to match, beat, and exceed the competition that we have around us. And so I think we're all in agreement that we want to make sure our students, our administration has every tool necessary to be successful. And if that's the case, if you guys are in agreement with that, then I would call the question, as this relates to item 2G, District of Innovation Resolution. Is there a motion at this time?
I make a motion that we accept the District of Innovation as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Trustee Gold, second by Trustee Hooper to approve the District of Innovation Resolution. I'll call the question. Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Gant.
I apologize, I was not sitting when this initially came up, but there was not a motion initially.
No, sir, this was pulled for separate consideration. And we started out with a question from Trustee Gold.
Okay, there should
Thank
have
you,
been a
sir.
motion before the discussion, but that's okay.
Yes, sir, and we typically do during action items because it was pulled for separate, consideration under consent. I figured we go ahead and lead with the question from Trustee Gold. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Once again, we have a motion by Trustee Gold, second by Trustee Hooper. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 6-0. One of the other items pulled for separate consideration was item 2H, Spanish textbook adoption. And Mr. Gant, just keeping in what we did with items 2A and 2G, I'm going to go ahead and yield the floor to Trustee Gold.
This will be fast. I just need clarification on this was, I didn't underline it, but it said that we were doing printed and digital, Dr. Harris?
Yes, yes, we are.
Textbooks? Oh,
Textbooks.
is that to you? Printed
The
and
one?
digital? Dr. Inslee?
Yes.
So does this mean that if they are getting digital, that we're giving them an iPad so that they can have their textbook digitally?
No, it does not mean that we are giving them a personal one-on-one. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, ma'am.
No, ma'am, but they do have that option to use their iPads or their computers or their devices to access the textbook. But
And
no,
if they don't have a device, then we give them the textbook.
yes, we do have paper
So we
textbooks
give them
available.
either the textbook or the digital, but they have a choice of which one. Because I'm not hearing that they have a choice on textbooks, that they have a choice of which they take home.
Yes, they do.
They do.
It's kind of consistent with our current practice. So we do have textbooks, and we have them also on digital. We have textbooks that students can take home also, check out, so they do have a choice. Or actually, they could do both. They could get them a textbook, and if they want to do it on digital, they can do that also.
Okay, so it's not just a classroom set.
We will have
with the-
textbooks if students need textbooks.
Awesome, that's all.
Thank you, Trustee Gold. Trustee Hooper.
I just want to clarify, we're just talking about licenses and them digitally downloading.
When we say digital,
Yeah.
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Assessing it, yeah.
They can
And we
use it
give
on
them
their own
codes.
device.
Beg your pardon?
They can download it on their own device, right?
Definitely, yes.
Trustee Gant.
I'm really happy to see this, and I'll tell you why. I attended an equity conference in D.C., and we talked about what is equity. And it's not making sure that everyone has the same thing. but it is assuring that everyone has the equal ability to learn. Equal access, yes. So, and I can remember this board having a heated discussion some years ago about, do we go digital, do we buy the actual textbooks? So we've really progressed, and I'm excited to see this. So thank you guys so much for what you've done to bring this to us.
Thank you, Trustee Gant. Trustee Daniel.
I just want to say one thing. I know that in some classes, every kid does not have access to a printed textbook. They have an either/or. I would like to be sure that they have access to a textbook and the digital, not an either/or.
So are you saying that we give out the textbook even if they say they're going to do digital, do both?
Yes. Because sometimes that digital stuff breaks down. And in some classes, they don't have enough textbooks, so some kids say they want digital and they don't have access.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This order should be for the full complement of textbooks for everybody if they want them.
Okay, because I've heard complaints that in some of the AP classes, that's happening, that they don't have both.
Not to my knowledge, but
Right,
it
and-
shouldn't be happening, but, because usually when, typically, even when you order digital, you have to order the full complement of textbooks as well, because the company is gonna make you pay for it regardless, whether you take the textbooks or you don't take the textbooks. So many school districts have warehouses full of textbooks that are all digital, but they still have warehouses full of textbooks because they require you to take the full complement of textbooks, which would be the numbers that are put out for the student enrollment.
Okay, that's the way it should be. Thank you.
And I have checked with the AP classes, but I will check again to make sure that they have the codes and the textbooks
Would you check with the
Definitely.
history classes?
with the,
History,
definitely.
thank you.
Yeah, Board, as you saw in your background information that we've had to review, this is the first update since 2005. And so we know that while we're talking about other subjects, we do understand and realize as a board that those books do have a tendency to walk away. But I think we all realize Trustee Daniel's point is to make sure that we make every effort that as we're going to have these books for, I believe it's at 8 years, that as we get closer to the 8 years, we make sure we monitor and make sure that all of our students have access, that Trustee Gant was speaking about, to materials, whether that be digital or hard copy. All right, Board, I think we've entertained all the questions. I don't see any further questions, comments, or discussion on this, and I'll entertain a motion if there be any from the Board at this time.
I move to approve.
A second.
We have a motion to approve is presented by Trustee Hooper, a second by Trustee Daniel. Call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries 6-0. All right, Board, that brings us to item 3A, which is our report items. Item 3A is trustee continuing education hours. I'll read that into the public's hearing at this time. You all have seen these. Experienced trustees are required to have 8 hours a year. New trustees, first-year trustees, are required to have 20 hours a year. So the hour totals, Carl Sherman Jr., and I'll read them in order as they're presented and listed in the agenda. Carl Sherman Jr. has 20 hours. Aubrey C. Hooper has 13.75 hours. Sandre Moncrief exceeded requirements by 20 hours, 12 hours. Hooper exceeded by 5.75. Moncrief exceeded by 12.25. Mr. Gant, Trustee Gant, the overzealous Trustee Gant exceeded the requirements by 30 hours. Trustee Karen Daniel by 14.5 hours, Trustee Hall by 11.25 hours, and Trustee Kathy Gold by 1.75 hours. And so those are posted for the public to see how your trustees are engaged in their continuing education hours. Board, that brings us to item 3B, which is our 2015-20. We did. 2015-2016 TAPR, or Texas Academic Performance Report. Dr. Harris.
Good evening, Board. Our President, distinguished trustees, Dr. Harris, thank you for this opportunity. I'm going to take a moment just to apologize for my voice, and I'm going to use this. If it gets too crackly, we'll stop by, but I've got whatever is going around, but I'm committed to my team and to you, so I'll try to take it a little slower than usual, but hopefully go in pace. It is my privilege to report to you, as we do yearly, the TAPR report, which, just to reminder, it replaced the AEIS, but it's reporting the data of our district from 2015-2016. I did want to show you just current changes that were from this previous year, from the year before. And this previous TAPR report that we just had, a reminder that grades 3 through 8 math, Star A and Star Alt 2, all grades and subjects, the results were included in the 2015-16 TAPR, and they were excluded, if you'll remember, from the 2014-15. And as we've kind of discussed before, even though the standard, especially in Index 1, did not go up, there were a lot of things that did play a role in that for us this year that we just mentioned. I'm not going to read all the rest of them, but you have seen some of those. I really wanted to highlight the big ones. The grade 5 and 8 level 2 satisfactory standard rates, the cumulative passing rates for the first 2 administrations of STAR, they were shown for reading and math. There you see the highlights for the graduation plate lines that were added, and the AP, and IB course completions that were added. The TSI initiative lines that were added, the completion of 2 or more advanced and dual credit courses in current or prior year line was added to post-secondary readiness, and the completion of 12 or more hours on post-secondary credit line was added. This is just a list of the things that are included. And here we go. We're going to start off with our Star 3 through 5 reading. This is the percent at level 2 satisfactory or above. This includes level 2 satisfactory or above. This is all students, and then you have your economically disadvantaged groups along with all of our other sub-pops there. You should have, and I can't see it all the way below, I'm going to look behind me just a minute. Grade 3 is on the left all the way up to grade 5 on your right. Then next you have your 6 to 8 reading. This is level satisfactory or above. 6, 7, and 8. This is your end of course language arts at level 2 satisfactory or above for English 1 and English 2. This is now we're going to switch to math, level 3 through 5, level 2 satisfactory or above. Star 6 through 8 math, level 2 satisfactory or above. I am going to point out on a couple of these slides, you'll see that there are 2 or more that seem a little bit higher than all the rest. Those are smaller numbers as well. So if you wonder why they're so high, it's because you've got a smaller number group in that one as well. And I can certainly go back into the report and we can look at the numbers, but you'll just see that it's a smaller group. This is your end of course Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History at level 2 satisfactory or above. Your STAR grade 8, Social Studies and Science at level 2 satisfactory or above. You're looking at your grade 8 Social Studies on the left and then Science. Grade 4 and 7 Writing at level 2 satisfactory or above. Now we're going to change just a little bit here. This is our STAR percent at level 2 satisfactory or above, but now we have all grades reading combined into this area. We're looking at the state, which is in your dark blue, the region in the medium blue, and the district in the light blue. The same information. This is math. All grades satisfactory or above compared to the state and region. And then we have writing. We have science, all grades. And we have social studies, all grades, satisfactory or above compared to the state and region. A little bit differently now, we have the star percent at post-secondary readiness. This is all grades. When you look at level 2, that is what was in place last year's post-secondary readiness will be the final stage. So now all grades reading at post-secondary readiness. You have the state, the region, and the district again compared. Again, at post-readiness standard, that's the final phase in math. Post-secondary readiness standard, all grades writing. Star percent at post-secondary readiness level, and this is science. Now this is the star percent at post-secondary readiness standard social studies. Now we're going to change just a little bit more, and this is at the advanced standard compared to the state, the region, and the district. This is in reading, all grades combined. This is math, all grades combined at the advanced standard. This is writing, advanced standard. Science, advanced standard. And social studies, advanced standard. Now, this is star percent that met or exceeded their progress measure. For most of us, it was index 2 or 3. It's compared to the state, the region, and the district. This is all grades reading. And as you can see, we made progress, lots of it. Math, met or exceeded their progress measure. This is the percent that exceeded their progress measure. They went above and beyond. They exceeded their year's growth. This is compared to the state, the region, and then the district. This has exceeded their progress measure for math. This is the progress of your prior year star failures, passing star to this year's 4 through 8. The state, the region, and the district. Now this slide is talking about the Student Success Initiative, and that's in grades 5 and 8. We're going to first start with 5 reading. The first column shows you the students meeting level 2 on the first administration, the state, the region, and then the district. This is the first round. Then your students that are requiring accelerated instruction, but the celebration there is the cumulative met. That's after the acceleration instruction, how many of now have met the standard. This is the same thing, but this is for math, grade 5. Grade 8 reading, again, it's our other SSI grade. We went from 76% to 83% after our accelerated instruction. And then grade 8 math. After the first administration, you have their accelerated instruction, and then you have their MET standard. We're going to go on now to our bilingual and ESL students. We're going to look first at the star percentage level 2 at satisfactory standard or above. Again, we're comparing it to the state, the region, and the district in this slide, and this actually has all of the disciplines on one chart for you. Now, this is how many of those same students are at post-secondary readiness standard. Again, that's the final. And then, again, our bilingual and ESL students, the percent that met their progress standard, or excuse me, met or exceeded their progress on all grades. There's math, and then there's reading. And then this is the percent that was at the advanced standard for the disciplines as well. Now that we've got the academics down, we're going to kind of look at our attendance between 13-14 compared to 15-16. The first one is your all. Then you have your social and economic groups. Then the dropout rate for grades 9 through 12. What's exciting is that all sub-prop dropout rates declined. This is your, this actually comes from the Texas of Higher Ed, well, the next one does. This is from the four-year longitudinal graduation rates. This is for the class of 2015. We're always a year behind on these reports. Now we're looking at your AP, excuse me, and your SAT students. The first three columns are going to show you 2013, 14, and 15, the percent tested on AP. The next column shows you the SAT and ACT in those same 3 years that percent tested. And then following that, you have their average SAT or ACT score for those same years. This is your ATC and your higher ed report. This shows you the graduates enrolled in Texas of higher ed in 2012, 13, and 14. And then the next one shows you the graduates completing 1 year without remediation in 2012, 13, and 14. Now, what did our students look like for the 2015-16? These were our percentages. Now, our teacher information, what did we look like for the 2014-15? And I believe that's a typo on my part. That should be 15-16, so I apologize on that. Yes, ma'am, that's my fault. Because this came from the TAPAR report. That's my error. Now, this is the one that's actually coming from the National Student Clearinghouse. And again, these are from a separate report, but we're asked to present them at the same time. This one has you actually looking from 2009 to 2016 at the total in class, the total enrolled in public and private 4-year, 2-year, tested in state and out of state. I am going to let you know that we noticed an anomaly in the year 2012. I'm currently working with National Student Clearinghouse to get that number corrected, and so that it is more in line, because you'll see it on this side and you'll see it on the other one. So the one in 2012 where it says we had 36 total enrolled, that is incorrect. All the others are in the 300 range, more or less, and if you look at the average. And I suspect that that would be in the same realm, but we're having to correct some student data that was entered in 2012 to get that corrected. And that hasn't been done to date, but I'll make sure that you're notified of a new slide when it does. This is the count of students enrolled in the college the first year after high school who returned for a second year. That would be from their freshman to their sophomore with persistence. This is high school graduates from the year 2014 who enrolled in a Texas public or independent higher education in 2015. And this is just showing you whether it was 4-year, 2-year independent colleges, not trackable, not found, and total graduates. Not trackable, I found out, had actually something to do with their social security number. The not found, those students could have gone to a trade school or to a school that wasn't tracked by this, by the Texas Higher Ed, but it doesn't mean that they weren't found. It just means they're not one of the universities that they're Texas public universities. It then shows you their GPA for the first year in public higher ed education in Texas. And then that's the website that all of that is actually on for public viewing. I was asked to go ahead and mention while we were on accountability to just give you a through F update of what we know today, and I always stress what we know today. I could walk out of here in 5 minutes and it could change. So we're going to get a what if report, and I love that name, a what if. The A through F system won't be applied this year. It'll be applied in the 2018 But what the legislative wanted to have done is, according to House Bill 2804, to apply the A through F system on your scores for this year. And what would you have been? So here's what we know. The commissioner has given us the criteria, but there's some more things that he will distribute in the coming weeks. But the domains, as we have gone from indexes to 4 indexes, we will be going to 5 domains. They're very similar to the 4 indexes, but different. I'll just let you read through those. The only one that I'm really going to point out is the community and student engagement. The campus and district select 3 areas of the 8, and we'll have to identify those this summer of 2018 on which 3. Currently, the way we've been doing that with House Bill 5 is we rate ourselves on all of those, but they're going to ask us now to choose 3. The A through F domain, the commissioner is looking at the initial distribution being close to. This is given us by ATAC, who is next in line of all of the decisions coming close out of TEA and the legislative. So we're expecting to be an A district, about 10%. B districts are estimating 35% will be that. C, 40%, D, 10%, and S, 5%. So we're looking at 85%, I believe, of the schools should be C or above, with 15% being Ds or Fs. They have talked about campuses and districts will have the opportunities to bump up based upon their campus comparison group, but we haven't been released any of that information yet. This is just the requirements from the legislation that on or before January 7th, the commissioner must submit a report to the Texas legislature that shows what grade each district and campus would have received in domains 1 through 5 for the 2015 school year if the A through F rating system had been in place. So the letter grades for domains 1 through 5 for each district and campus in Texas that received a score will be on this report. The legislative wants to see it before it's released. When the A through F system is implemented in the summer of 2008, of course, they'll have target scores associated with that. I'm just going to clear up here that initially we were told that the district would get 1 overall grade, and so would the campuses. And what we've been told now is you will get a domain. So you'll have 1 letter for domain 1, 1 letter for domain 2, 3, 4, and 5. There will not be an overall grade applied to the what if, but in 2018 that is anticipated to happen. Here are some key dates that's coming up. The December 1st is already passed. They did release the information on the domains. December 16th is the next date. They're going to unmask the data tables for us, very similar to when they released the CAF file for assessment accountability, so we can look at what information they're actually going to use. They tell us from that we should be able to have pretty clear direction as where we should be. Then on the 4th, the 30th, they send that to the Texas legislative showing each district in those 5 domains and all the campuses in that district in their 5 domains. On the 4th, and this is exciting because we were told at first that we were not going to get this before the public. TEA releases the A through F on T, so we should see that the 4th, and then it will be released to the public on the 6th. And that is the end of my TAPAR report. Questions for me?
All right, thank you so much, Board. This is a standard report. You guys know we get this annually at the midpoint of the following year. And so we'll entertain questions, comments, discussions. And you may very well, Ms. Farrell, they may have all their questions on the next one because it's snapshots, right? But because that gives us a leading indicator. But if there's anyone that wants to speak to this lagging report. Okay, thank you so much, Ms. Farrell. Board, that brings us to item 3B, which is 3C, which is our snapshot update. Dr. Harris.
Mr. President, we're requested to give some progress report data, which we call snapshot data. And so Dr. Inslee will share that information with you.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. President Sherman, Board of Trustees. Today, we're going to look a little deeper at the data, and we're going to look at our snapshots. As we all know, we started giving snapshots this year. The first, let me get. No, it wasn't up yet. I was waiting for it to come up. Okay. Yes. Okay. I think we're going now. Okay, I want to first say that with the implementation of Snapshot, a very important piece was to let the students and the campus and the parents and teachers and everyone involved know the scheduled dates of snapshots. The snapshots are actually scheduled in approximately a 3-week period so that we are able to gather the data and look at what's going on the campuses during that 3-week period. The purpose of frequent assessment, we have several reasons that we do the frequent assessment. I recently read some data by Roger that says that when you are testing, it aids in the retention for students, and that students learn more when they're expecting to be tested. And also, we do the frequent testing because of the things that are listed, and also for pacing. So that we are sure to be pacing, and when we're not, we have that ability to go back and spiral through what's going on in our campuses. So we're going to just take a look at the snapshot data, if I could get that. Okay, we have the snapshot data here to mirror what you've just seen. We have our economically disadvantaged, our special ed, and our ELL. As we all know, our special ed population and our ELL populations are our targeted areas. Next, we have our snapshots for 6 through 8 reading. We know that with the snapshots, with the first snapshot, sometimes when we start at the beginning of the year, you may have some review, and sometimes you start off with the readiness standards immediately. So this is our English language arts, satisfactory or above. I'm having problems with the clicker here. Next, we have our 3 through math percent at satisfactory or above. I do want to remind everyone that snapshots are just what they say. So when we do snapshots, they are fewer questions. Usually the most on a snapshot is going to be the 10. Okay, he's going to move it forward. Are going to be 10. So sometimes that does affect the samples that we have here. Next, we have snapshots 6 through 8 math. While we're doing our snapshots, we want to be sure that the snapshots are used for the intended purposes to identify gaps in knowledge, as well as those in different populations. Next, we have our snapshots for Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History, 1, 2, and 3. Then our snapshots for 5th and 8th grade Science. Next, we would have Social Studies. Our snapshots for Writing. Okay, as we said, our snapshots, we go on to the next slide, and as we said, our snapshots are part of the things that we have in place. But we want to make sure that we're not doing random acts that aren't systematic. So we are looking for effective practices, ways to have continuous improvement so that we can have equitable achievement. So on the next slide, we talk about our processes for results, for continuous improvement. The first step is that we collect the data, such as the snapshot data, but we also use various sources because we know that all types of things have to be looked at so that we can have continuous improvement, with the snapshots being one of the sources that's being used. The second, we analyze the data and prioritize needs. At the schools, they have data meetings, they have data rooms, they have all types of ways for analyzing the data. We have recently implemented or given them access to what we call a dashboard, where they're able to look at the data board holistically or look at the data. And after they analyze the data and prioritize the needs, they set SMART goals. They set these goals pertaining not only to the outcomes, but as well as the process. What's the goal? How often will we meet? Where will the students be? What is it that we need to do? And then they select common instructional strategies, realizing that some teachers are better in some areas than others. We do collaborative planning, model lessons, and things of that nature, so that we can select common instructional strategies that are beneficial for students. And then you determine results indicators. How are we going to know if the students are improving? What do we do when they are not improving? What do we do with those who are improving? So we determine the results and the indicators. And then 6, which is a very important piece of the puzzle, is to monitor and evaluate, because we definitely don't want to continue to do things that are not working. We want to monitor and we want to evaluate. And then in our process for continuous improvement, we began again with the data. You've seen this slide before, and it just talks about the different district improvement efforts we have, and some have been added this year. Of course, the writing is an initiative, and a very important initiative that we're working on and rolling out is our reading framework, where we're putting in place a framework for our reading where we can ensure and continue to make sure that students are reading on grade level by 3rd grade. So we're working on this diligently, and we'll begin rolling it out to get more input from principals and other stakeholders as far as that reading plan is concerned. But to do all of this, you must have systems approach. Systems must be in place so that, as we said before, so that we're not randomly or seeing the pockets of improvement that we sometimes see. If we want to see systemic improvement, then systems must be in place. So the first thing, as far as the curriculum instruction is concerned, the system alignment is important. While sometimes it seems basic, the basic foundation of instruction is that these 3 things must be aligned: the tested, the written, and the taught curriculum. So in order to do this year, we have a focus on 3 instructional systems. The 3 instructional systems, the vertical alignment, the collaborative planning, the reflective practice models. We have trained principals on this. ICs, gone to campuses, talked about these 3 instructional systems that are fundamental if we are to be able to make progress. With the vertical alignment, oftentimes we think about vertical alignment, we think about from grade level to grade level. That is very important. And then we think about horizontal alignment also, and that's why we have our collaborative meetings. But even more specifically, in this vertical alignment, we're talking about the TEKS and down to the student expectations. Is that aligned with what's being taught? So that will make an impact on the tested curriculum if everything is aligned. And then the second part is the collaborative meetings, where teachers are having a chance to discuss and talk about this vertical alignment. How does it look? What should we do? Give different ideas. And the third piece, which is very important, is the reflective practice models, where when in the first piece, the vertical alignment, when the artifacts or the authentic student work is done and is posted outside of the rooms with the 3 parts, down to the student expectation, then teachers are able to walk and able to be reflective on their practices. Does this really match? Are we teaching to the rigor? Are we teaching to what the TEKS has actually asked us to teach? And much of the literature says that when you have peer reviews, peers talking to peers about what things should look like and how it should be done, then the results do improve. So the 3 instructional systems is one of our focus this year, and that's what everybody has been trained on, and it's what's going on at the campus. With the district standards practices, having some basic things that must be in place that I have mentioned, but the full TEKS posted with the objective, the authentic student work posted outside of the room with the TEKS and the objectives posted so that, as we said, teachers can be reflective, administrators can be reflective. We can be reflective on what we're doing and make sure that we're continuously improving. Word wall with graphics. And then the next part, phase 2, that we will be rolling out as a part of our reading plan. And we are already doing journals in the classroom, but we just want to be more specific about our journals in the 4 content areas so that our journals are used for instructional pieces and not just for a diary. Like journals should be used for instruction, so we'll be taking that journals to the next level. And that's our district standard practices that the curriculum department and everybody that's involved, we are monitoring for and ensuring that that's happening. But for those systems to happen, there must be support in place. So we definitely have ongoing training on the 3 systems. We've allowed school visits, comparison visits, where we've actually gone to see schools that are doing well, what they're doing, and specifically we've had groups from schools to actually go and see these 3 systems in practice and how it really looks past theory, but in practice. And also the campus walks at the schools so that so as again, I said that the peers are able to talk to each other and know what's going on. But we do know that if any of these goals are to be reached, it's really not about programs, it's about people. So we're continuously to embrace and to have that continuous improvement model where we are making sure that having conversations so that our teachers, our staff, our principals have the support and have what they need in the classroom so that we can reach that ultimate goal of graduation and students being college ready. Also, at your desk, we gave the snapshot data broken down by schools as well, so that you would have that also. Any questions at this time?
Thank you, Dr. Hensley. I'm sure there'll be some questions coming from the board. Board, this is a report item of our snapshot of where we are. I entertain questions, comments, discussion at this time, if there be any. Trustee Hooper.
First, thank you for the report, Dr. Harris, administrative staff, Dr. Hensley. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to say this. So I agree with you, on curriculum alignment. You would think that that is a no-brainer. And, I was looking at your 3 instructional system model that you showed, but I have to kind of go back to some data that Ms. Farrell also shared in connecting to us preparing kids to the last thing that you said, being college ready. And I know that this is a lagging report, but it's still relevant and germane because it's recent history. And so when I look at first year of college, when I look at student success rate in first year of college, it's all about preparing students for the next level. I think part of that, and hopefully some of this is coming in this reflective piece, where do we teach students how to be students? Like really how to study, how to be students. Because when I look at the data from once they leave the nurturing environment that we now know as high school, and then they are left to their own devices, I'm not seeing what I view as success. When I look at, and again, this is based on students that went to schools in Texas. And so I'm measuring it on the 361 that went to either 2-year or 4-year universities, public universities. So of that, the vast majority of those students had under a 2.99. The significant majority of that vast majority had under a 2.5. The larger percentage of that vast majority had a 2.0 or under. So back to my previous question. So where in this instructional model or in these systems are we doing two things? One, emphasizing the importance of understanding the next level and what that actually means. A true representation of what college expectations are. Because I'm thinking that there's some missing communication there. Or somebody's sending a message and somebody's not receiving it. And sometimes you got to send the message, but you also got to have a receiver to get it. The other thing is, maybe it is that you just may not know how to be a student. I can honestly say that, through high school, I got by on my laurels. I mean, just on natural ability to just make it. But I still had a sense of what the college expectation. And I knew that I was going to have to step my game up in a very significant way. And so, and again, I understand that this is lagging. I mean, I know that we are continuously reevaluating and putting systems in place and this, that, and the other. But I also know that there's still a population of students at DeSoto High School that don't know how to be students. And that's not just at DeSoto High School. Let me just put that out. That's at high schools across the country. But I'm not worried about them, because these are the kids that I want to be problem solvers and thought leaders across the globe. So I just want to make sure that, number one, that we are investing dollars, energy, and time into teaching students how to study and how to be students. I'm not interested in sugarcoating or fluffing or making somebody feel good about something that's not real. So if you give me an A paper, you get an A. But if you don't give me an A paper, I'm not going to give you an A just so you can feel good about yourself. I mean, because I really need you to learn through the process and master your craft. And I don't want to suggest anything with that statement. However, I think we need to rewalk kids through the writing process. We need to rewalk kids through the process for working out math, the process for working out anything. Because obviously there's some problems with retention. And so if we're doing all of those things in that instructional system, there's still a portion that we're missing. And I get all of the fluffy stuff. Putting the teaks outside the wall, the lesson plans in the door, the student work and all of that, and how it related to the teak, and all that's a whole bunch of stuff that makes people that's doing walkthroughs feel really good about the situation. But at the end of the day, that does not tell me, does Johnny really know this? Or did he just get it for these questions that were really not at the rigor that should have been, but because I'm required to display student work, I put up something that I thought was at least adequate. I mean, but my greater concern, and I hope you're getting a real message of what I'm saying, and that speaks to a larger issue in terms of our college readiness initiatives. We really need to make sure that, number one, we expose kids to college. and so that they have a real understanding of what the expectation is. Period. You know, you can't have a 2.5 GPA talking about you going to Harvard. That's delusional. That's delusional. I mean, and unfortunately, I've had some of those conversations with students. I mean, but that's delusional. I mean, so, you know, I don't know if it's the counseling team, the college readiness team, or whoever. And I'm not trying to put more work on the teacher. But there are other ancillary positions that need to be focused on the exposure piece and really having that real conversation about what is expected. You going to West Point, this is what it looks like. This is the expectation. And then the other thing is, at least the way I was raised, and I'm going to relate it back to DeSoto, when I went out and represented my family or my mother, I was always taught, you don't embarrass what? The family name. And so the bottom line is, if this is the data that I'm getting back on the kids that we're sending to some of the institutions across the state, I don't want to embarrass the family name. So how do we avoid that? We take the data and see what things that we can do to address those deficiency areas. I mean, because the reality is, you know, that's a problem. I mean, and this is not the first time that we've seen something like this. And so, you know, I get that we're doing the college readiness stuff, the SAT, all of that type of stuff. But guess what? We do a really good job of getting kids there. And that's fine. But we also want them to graduate. So I don't want to sell you a false bag of goods, because not only do I want you to be college ready, I want you to complete college. So that may need to be the new storyline. We're preparing kids to complete college and graduate with a degree. Maybe we need to put the whole thing with it. The college completion department. That may need to be the new name. I mean, because, you know, college ready and college completion might look like two different things. And I know I'm saying a whole bunch of stuff, but I'm very serious about what I'm saying. So, you know, I get it. I get it very clearly. And I understand testing and all of that stuff. I do that for a living. But the bottom line is, we have to have systems in place that teach kids how to be students and how to be the best students possible. The other thing is, we need to have real conversations with kids about where they are and then develop individualized educational plan for every kid, because one size fits one, it does not fit all. I mean, education should be individualized, which is why I like this District of Innovation. It creates an opportunity for us to address the individualized needs of students. But we have to really put focus on, and everybody has to give a little extra. I'm using all them taglines that we've used over the years to make sure that every kid has an opportunity of success. Because right now, if I'm looking at this, that's not what success looks like. That's not DeSoto. That's not the message. So we got to change the storyline, go back to the drawing table, do something different. And that's fine. Everybody got to retool. But, you know, in good conscience, I couldn't just sit here and remain silent because, you know, it's a reality. And we can't send kids to some of the finest institutions across the state and across the nation, and they embarrass the family name.
Thank you, Trustee Hooper. Trustee Moncrief.
Okay. I second what Mr. Hooper is saying about the college-ready piece. We got a lot of work to do on making sure that kids are really ready for college, those that want to go to college, and in helping them to put a plan in place. So I agree what he's saying, but I'm going to take you on back to elementary because that's my playground. So in looking at the stuff with the snapshots, I remember this year when we talked about the implementation of snapshots, and of course my concern is always more testing, extra testing. But then I also know, I'm not an educator, but I walk through schools, and I see these gorgeous data walls that people put up. And at the end of the day, I see raggedy scores. So these data walls don't really do anything. And then I know, since I've been on this board, since I've been paying attention to education, I hear a lot about data, data, data. And whenever I ask for a report, I get all this stuff with data, data, data. And that's all people say. The data this and the data that. And sometimes I just want plain English, plain language. And I always ask for that. The snapshots. Are they doing the intended job? What we implemented the snapshots for, are they doing that? Are you getting the information from it? And I'm looking from what I can see with my layman's eyes, because I'm not an educator. And they don't look that hot to me, but maybe I'm misinterpreting the data. But just plain English. Are the snapshots doing the intended job? What are they doing?
Okay. Yes, they are. And again, I want to say that we're not that comfortable bringing them either, and they may not look that hot. But the intended purpose is for the teachers to use them to drive instruction, for us to look and see if we are able to close the gap between subgroups, and also to see if the students are gaining the knowledge, the TEKs that are being taught. And the reason, as I said, the snapshots are going to be 7-10 questions, which are not a whole lot of questions, but in those questions, they're going to address a certain student expectation or TEK. And so when the teachers see that, they know exactly what the student has missed, and campuses are able to reorganize according to what students need. Campuses are able to spiral back and see what students have missed. And I like to think or say that the snapshots are more of a checkup. We're checking up right now to see where everybody is so that we can address what's going on. And then the common assessments, which are given this week, that's gonna, it's gonna be all the way back to the beginning of the year, so you'll get a better picture. But the snapshots has helped the teacher to make sure that they're keeping the pace, and so that when we're getting into the common assessments and even to the STAR, that we have exposed the students and we have taught those skills that should have been taught by the time it's time for testing, and more importantly, the skills that the students need to be successful.
In terms of the snapshots, and you said teachers trying to use them to figure out what job they did, where does the IC come into that? Because a lot of times, from my perspective looking in, the IC is just putting up these data walls and just crunching stuff. And right. I also understood that the IC is also the person who's going in and assisting teachers with driving, with modeling for them what good teaching looks like, or with, you know, helping them to figure out why your kids aren't learning the information that you're giving them, giving them different techniques, giving them different tools. Are we allowing ICs to do that, or are they just still back there doing these data walls and creating all this data? Well, what are they doing?
An important piece of the IC is to build capacity in teachers, because we know that if you build those layers, the capacity in the teachers, that they're able to reach more students, as opposed to the IC actually going in and doing that. So yeah, that is one of their main duties, to build capacity in teachers. But yes, but the data walls, they are not in there just moving. After we have snapshots, or they do the common assessments, the teachers and the ICs actually meet in the data room, and at that time, collaboratively, they're looking at students, where they are, what they've missed, how can we do better, were there trends in the data, were there special SEs that some classes did more better on than others, and they're looking collaboratively to see what from the scores are the data, the scores from the test, breaking it down using what we call heat maps to see if there were special areas that we need to address. So it's not something that the IC is doing in isolation. It's something that the teachers, everyone's doing together, so that they are what we call owning their data, so that they are looking at the data to see how we're able to do better. So the IC, they do serve as the liaison for curriculum, and so when we have our meetings, we're talking about these systems that we have in place, giving them examples, talking about ways they can impact the students, and doing all those types of things in the IC meetings when we meet with them monthly, and at the campuses, those are their major duties.
And as far as you're 3 snapshots in, right?
Yes.
This semester, we see that there's a lot of room for improvement.
Definitely.
So have we started trying to isolate how we can improve them, how we can make them more effective, or what have we learned from this grand adventure of snapshotting?
Let me just, one thing we got to remember, the snapshot. So if you give 8 questions, if a student missed half of that, okay, it looks very skewed. And that's why we're hesitant about, and I know teachers get a little concerned about this as well, that we're revealing data to people that's based on a very limited. It's kind of like when you would take a pop quiz. So teacher gives you a pop quiz of 5 questions. Well, heck, if I miss, 3 of them, I mean, I really just failed. So that's why we're really cautious about how we put that out, because the purpose is not to generate a grade. The purpose of the snapshot is to generate a discussion about how students are performing on a certain teach. It's not about the score. The snapshot is not about the score. It's about how did all the students miss the same answer a question the same way? Because if they did and they all missed it, that's probably a teaching, instructional problem. Maybe half of them missed it. So that's what that data is designed to do. It's not designed for us to come and look and say, oh, only got, kids only scored 20%. Well, it's because the data is going to be messed up because it's such a limited sample size of it, so it's not going to really speak to it, how students are really performing on a snapshot.
Okay.
Because they could be at that bubble area, there.
I get that. And in my intention behind asking for this, a report on this, is I wanted to check in and see what are we doing with them. Since this is our first time implementing them, I wanted there to be thorough discussion, explanation, and figure out, is this something that's working for us, or is this just another test added to the mix? And that's what I'm trying to get to.
So so teachers are required to put in grades, a certain amount of grades by board policy. So this is also another opportunity, and I hate to use it as a grade, but however they decide to use that as a way, but you got to have some information. So it's also a way to get that information, also get something possibly in the grade book, but also it helps that teacher have that conversation about how students are performing on certain objectives. So is it being utilized? Yes. It drives all conversation either at the district level, at the campus level, and also drives it at the district level, because we're also looking at those snapshots as well. The program that we have you can go in and look and see exactly what percentage of students answered a certain question correctly. There's a lot of data that's generated from that.
Trustee Hooper, I see your hand, but I do want to allow Trustee Moncrief to finish, and I also want to allow for anyone else that has not spoken yet to get in on the topic, then we'll circle back to you. Trustee Moncrief's done. Trustee Daniel.
I like the quote you have here, or not the quote, but doesn't have quotation marks around it. But it says, human beings, not programs, initiatives, movements, or devices guarantee progress. I think we depend too much on programs, initiatives, movements, or devices for our students' success. It's important that we hire the best, we trust the best to teach, we reward the best, and we value the best. And I don't think we do that. That's why we are not getting the best. And the best teachers know that constantly they teach students how to be students. If you want to be successful in this class, this is what you have to do. If you want to be successful when you go to college, this is what you have to do. And ever since we, not just us, but all districts everywhere, became test-driven, the teachers don't have time to teach. Every minute and a half, you're giving a test. Do the kids think these snapshots are important? Or do they say, well, it doesn't matter because we're not going to get a grade, or it's only a daily grade and they dropped the lowest daily grade, so we'll just play around on the snapshots. But it's not just our snapshot scores that are terrible. Our SATs have gone down, our ACTs have gone down. Everything has gone down. We have the lowest scores in Region 10. That's pitiful. And it's because we are not hiring the best teachers, and we are not trusting the teachers that we have to teach. They don't have time to teach. They have to make TEKS charts and this chart and that chart, and lesson plans that are ridiculous and take hours and hours and hours. You know, after a teacher gets a few years of experience, everybody knows what that teacher is going to teach. And that teacher doesn't have to rewrite every year, every lesson plan. Yes, we make changes. Yes, we adjust from class to class to class to class, but we're not allowing our teachers to teach. We are just putting our thumb on them so hard, they get so discouraged. If I were a new teacher or a fifth-year teacher right now, I would be out of the classroom in an instant. You know, teaching is not a valued profession. It used to be valued a long time ago, but it's not. And if you look on our exit report that we just saw, you can really see what the teachers said about this district.
Thank you, Trustee Daniel. Trustee Gold.
Yes, just a couple of observations I want to say. And one is, I wonder if some, and I'm looking at the snapshot for 6 through 8 math as just an example, but it makes me think that the 7th grade, the first 7th grade test that was given, the test must have been flawed. Something was wrong. I just don't believe that the grades would be that low. I think that 8th grade number 2 test, the test was flawed. Either there was a misunderstanding about what TEKS were being taught that 6 weeks. I don't know.
Well, we actually went and talked with those 7th grade teachers because of that. And they said they did a lot of routines and champs and just introductory or procedural-like things that week. That was at the beginning.
First 6 weeks?
Uh-huh.
Is it
Well,
6
first
weeks
3
or 3 weeks?
Just
Okay,
3
3
weeks.
weeks. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right. And again, I think that's one of the purposes. So they were able to see that, hey, we have missed this, and so we need to get back and spiral that in before the common assessment. We also looked at that test because, like Dr. Harris said, at the district level, we're looking at it also. So when we see that, we go and talk with the teachers and see what happened, and that's what they said. That test also only had 7 questions, so that also lends itself to the scenario that Dr. Harris described.
Right, and then that 8th grade, the second test for the 8th grade, what was the deal on that test?
Okay,
Same
I'll get
page.
to it. First, which one?
It was snapshots 6th through 8th in math. The 8th grade, the second test, which would be the 4th through the 6 weeks, 4th, 5, and 6 weeks.
Okay.
It doesn't
I think I
look
mentioned
like-
that too, that sometimes they are reviewing initially when they get into a classroom. And so then that second 6 weeks, it was progressively tougher. So we did see, but again, as Dr. Harris said, we don't really want to look at them as numbers, but we do look at what's the trend, why are they going down and up and things like that.
Right, and I'm picking on math. There were other things just like that in the science and the English, but especially the English language arts, mercy. I mean, I understand, I do understand where you have to review and where you have to get your momentum going. I mean, I totally understand that, but it just kind of seems like it, something's wrong, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. If, and that's the page before that, where it says the English language arts snapshot pages for English 1 and English 2, which would be freshman and sophomore English at the high school level, right?
Correct.
Okay. That page is disturbing. There's a lot of pages in here that were disturbing to me. But back to, I want to say something about what Mr. Hooper was talking about here. And I guess I have a question about this. I didn't go ahead and ask it when Ms. Farrell was up here because I kind of wanted to see what all was going to happen. And I think, Dr. Inslee, you can probably speak to this. But can you go back with me to the student enrolled in college in the fall page? It's page 88, I think. I've been here too long. My contacts are fogging out. This is really small print on this page, page 88. So I'm having a little trouble seeing this tonight. I'm going to have to get me some reading glasses for this.
It is page 88, student enrolled in college in
Yeah.
fall, immediately
Yeah.
after high school.
It is a little bitty print for you too, Mr. Sherman.
No comment.
Okay.
You can see that just fine, Mr. Sherman. It's just me.
I've only had my eyes for 28 years, so they're still doing well.
Well, I've had mine for 65, so. Anyway, Dr. Inslee, on that page, if you can look with me, I guess I'm under the wrong assumption here. I thought with our college magnet program that we have at the high school, that we were really pushing college enrollment and that we were getting these children ready to go to college. We were helping them to do their college enrollment packets. We were helping the parents to understand how to lead their children into the pathway for colleges.
Definitely.
Is that
Yes.
not right? Well, if we had 600 and, I'm just pointing this out, maybe not reading this correctly, I don't know. This last year, we had 607 people graduate. We had, does that say 339?
Correct, correct,
339?
total enrolled. Mhm.
Okay, so I'm just looking at these other numbers of how many graduated and how many went to college. It seems like percentage-wise, and I don't do these numbers in my head. I should have done this before we came tonight. But less percentage-wise, children went to college this last year than they had the previous 2 years. Is that correct? Do you read that the same?
We don't have the percentages there, but yeah, just looking at round numbers.
Round
Yes,
numbers,
uh-huh.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bobby could probably pull those percentages out for us at a flash there. But anyway, I guess my point is, I just wanted to make the point
Right. Yeah.
that with those programs in place and with all the things that are being done to help students prepare to take the SAT, and I could make some comments about the SAT and ACT page also, but if we are doing prep classes for those tests, if we are helping the students to enroll in college, we are having meeting after meeting, it seems like, to push higher education. And I'm not saying higher education is all that there is about. I was a career and technology teacher for 40 years, so I do understand that a lot of children are not going to go to college, but they are going to be very successful, just as successful, and make just as much money and be just as happy without a college education. But I just think that because that has been our focus, or it seems to have been our focus for the last two to 3 years, that I just wondered what the explanation was for those numbers.
That is definitely our focus, but I will say that we do expect it to continue, or the percentage to continue to increase. Last year was the first year for, as you know, our CMP graduates, where we did the 12, the Big 12, and they were actually a year ahead because they did the 4 years in 3 years. And so this year we do have those who are on schedule to graduate. We talked about that today, approximately 32 to 34. But of course, that's only a segment of our population, you know, the collegiate magnet and the early college. So as you said, we do have other things in place where we are working on getting them to be college ready, such as our Go Center and the other things that we have in place. And we will just continue to work and put systems in place so that students are prepared and ready to go to school. But like you said, this is the college, and we do have people who go into different arenas also.
But that doesn't drive necessarily kids going to college just because we get them there. I mean, there's not every kid gets a scholarship. So not every parent can pay for a kid to go to a 4-year college. So there are some other things that go on that may or may not allow for kids to go right into college. We have a lot of kids that go to work for a while and then try to go into college. So that number can be very, very misleading as far as, how many kids go into college. That's a lot of kids. It'd be great if all 607 kids got scholarships to go to college, but that's, right, that's not gonna happen. And, you can basically look at kids who get full scholarship rides to college, and that's not a real high number. So that's the other reason why it's helpful to get as many kids as you possibly can taking those college courses early on before they graduate from high school, because that's basically money that they don't have to pay when they start college.
Also want to just make a point that on every page that I can see on the report from Ms. Farrell, DeSoto was way below. Star percentage exceeds progress in reading, math. We were not up to Region 10 average or the state average. And I don't think that doing the snapshots or whatever we're doing, the data walls, the snapshots, I'm just going to give my opinion on this, is doing the job that it needs to do. And it doesn't look like the snapshots from this year that our EOC scores our STAR scores, are going to be that much different than how they have been in the past. And so I was wondering if you could give us an idea about just the trends and the comparisons of what's going on in other districts in this best Southwest area for like maybe the last 4 or 5 years with them, how their scores have progressed, and how our trends and our comparison how it has gone with other schools. Are we in the ballpark with them? Somebody said, I think Ms. Daniels said it looked like that we probably had the lowest STAR scores in the best Southwest area, in the Region 10 area. Do you know, is that true?
That is not accurate. That is not accurate.
Okay,
You
well,
said
compared
you said
to
Region
this-
10. You said Region 10. So yeah, so that wouldn't be an accurate statement.
Okay.
So and let me just say this too, and we're looking at
Less than Region 10.
districts that have like demographics to see what practices are they using with their kids. But let me just say this, and I wouldn't say this but I'm going to say it now, is, we keep having these discussions that basically says to teachers that it's okay not to do certain things. And that is a battle that we're fighting, because we get the amen corner about, too much testing. So we got this battle that goes on about we got to get this testing done, we got to make sure we know where kids are. And I'm telling you, teachers feel like when they hear that discussion, they're not giving us 100% every day in the classroom. And so we've got to make sure that there is an expectation for kids to perform, because that is how we are judged, regardless of what we think about testing. And I think everybody up here has a distaste in our mouth for testing. But we say different things out of the different sides of our mouth. We say we're not performing well, but we don't want teachers doing certain things. People that have kids performing well are doing certain things. And we have teachers that have gone to visit schools that are doing exactly what we're trying to get our teachers to understand. When you're dealing with like demographics or whatever, this is what you've got to do. And we get a lot of resistance from getting them to understand, and that's why we took a group of teachers to actually see it working. They actually saw how it works. But we can't keep stamping to make it seem as if we're doing something to teachers that's different from anybody else that's getting results. We are rubber stamping that for teachers. We are hiring the best teachers that are out there when we are out looking for teachers, the best teachers that we can find at that time. And so that is what we are hiring. But if we keep sending a message that there's something counterproductive to that, that is wrong. That is quite absurd for us to be having that type of conversation when we got people out there that's doing the best they can to find the best teachers. I cannot sit here, and maybe there's an issue, and allow that conversation to keep having without us having a conversation about what is the expectation for teachers. Not that we don't want teachers doing this, we don't want teachers doing that. We want teachers teaching kids in the classroom. We want them getting success. So one of the things that we look very closely is at what does that success look like? So now we can track very closely, very quickly, the kids that teachers are teaching, are they getting the results? Because regardless of what we say and what we do, what really makes a difference is what goes on in that classroom every single day. So we can have some processes in place, we can have some systems in place, but it still goes back to that classroom. And so we've got to set a standard for what that expectation is in that classroom. And it's pretty simple. I mean, we can go see other people do it and doing it right with the same like demographics, but if teachers are not willing to get in there and make it happen and not make excuses for why it can't happen, because other districts are doing snapshots, and they're using snapshots to drive instructions. What makes us so different that we can't do that? What I hear that's making a difference is we hear people saying, we don't want our teachers doing that. And when we know it works. So I think that conversation has to change somewhere so that teachers understand that we as a board, not half the board, not whatever the board, that we've got to understand that the expectation is for teachers to get in and help students become successful. So that is something we've got to change. It is not all right for teachers to hear someone saying that they don't have to do this or they don't have to do that. And part of the problem that we're having is getting them to do that when we have a constituency out here, around here, that says that it's not okay to do that.
And I think before we continue the conversation on, I think it's always good for us to look at our point of reference. And the conversation we're having is around snapshots. We know that snapshots are in place for us to have a measurement tool of where we are as a district in those individual classrooms, on those individual campuses. As we know, when we talked about this last year, that this will be used as a tool to guide instruction to make sure that we're not missing any gaps, so that we don't find ourselves at the end of the year looking like what happened. One of the things I do as an individual board member is I still, obviously I talk to Warren a lot, every week just about, and it always relates to DeSoto ISD. I talk to our former board trustee who's now mayor of DeSoto, Kirsten McCowan. I talk to Dr. Ingram, and we have the privilege of having Trustee Gant, who's been on the board for some years that will go unnamed, but to get his perspective of being around DeSoto for a while. And one of the things that all of them say overwhelmingly is one of the issues we had that was extremely prevalent was that we had individual campuses working in isolation. And so you never knew what you were going to get year after year. And so one of the things that this board, and I believe that was my first year on the board, one of the things that we tasked our new superintendent with was making sure that we had some consistency across all campuses so that we weren't surprised at the end of the year, so that we knew what was going on and we could make the proper adjustments. Now, this conversation at a board level, taking into account our roles, our responsibilities as board members, is to look at the data, to see where we are. And the questions we typically would ask after looking at a report like this is, hey, I see Meadows has made drastic improvements in subject A. What are they doing there that we could duplicate and do at other campuses? As a board member, what tools do we need to provide for these campuses to do that? That's the conversation that a board member should be having. Not necessarily if we're going to do it, when we're going to do it, how we're going to do it, how much we're going to do it. That's what we delegate to the superintendent to do. That's his job. At the end of that job, if we say, hey, we don't like it, it's not going well, we have one employee and we know where to address it. But folks, we're 3 snapshots in the first year. The conversation we should be having is, hey, this is what's going on. How do we address it as a board? What do we need to do? What kind of support do we need to offer? What can we provide moving forward? And the same can be said, and I'll take this opportunity, Trustee Hooper, I see your light on, and as promised, we'll go back to you. One of the things I've heard is, hey, the snapshots, they come out, the instructional coordinator is worried about testing, or not testing, but scoring them. They don't have necessarily time to get into the classrooms. So the question I would have is, what resources can we provide to each campus that when they take this snapshot data, they're able to turn it around quickly and make an impact? Now, you might have a plan for that second semester, I don't know, but maybe you can speak to that, because that's one of the concerns. And you don't have to address it now because Mr. Hooper has a comment, and we'll come back and I'll get the answer to that. And then lastly, how will this data be used? And I know Trustee Moncrief alluded to it, but what can we as a board expect moving forward based on what we've seen tonight? What does that look like? So once again, you can come back to those questions. I'm going to go to Trustee Hooper, but I just wanted to give us a point of reference as a board as to what we're looking at But then two, what our role and responsibilities after receiving this information is and how we take that move forward as a district. Trustee Hooper.
Yeah, so my question was actually along that line. In terms of the snapshot data, based on what Dr. Ansley said earlier, once we get that data, I'm assuming that that informs the teacher on what areas specifically we need to evaluate for reteach. And then it also allows them to plan out their calendar of instruction of how much time do we need to focus reteach on specific elements or specific SEs or specific TEKs. So I'm assuming that that's what that looks like. And so my question is, then if that's what it looks like, at least in my head, that's what it looks like, or that's what it should look like. What is the, monitoring of that, whether it's coming from the IC or whether it's coming from the AP, to ensure that that is happening in this reflective model, in this reflective piece, which is where that reteach, that we would utilize the data from this. And I'm going back to this 3 instructional system piece because, the snapshots falls within that model or system that you're creating. So if you could, and I think that kind of wrap around some of what President Sherman was looking for. I mean, great minds kind of think alike. At least my mind, I definitely know is great. And so I kind of would love for you to kind of capture that.
Okay, that actually starts at all levels. At the district level, that impacts our pacing calendars.
Yeah.
So if there's something that we need to spiral back and put in that's actually listed on the pacing calendar, that it should go back. And so at the district level, though, we're looking at trends throughout the district. At the campus level, they should be looking at the trends or what's going on at their campus. So there are various strategies used to address those when you find that, for instance, I think I said that some schools even regroup. They group like students who need those same instructions. Many campuses have interventions during the day where they're able to do that. So the ICs, but like I said, collaboratively with the teachers are looking at the data to make sure that they're addressing that from the pacing to the reteaching during the day, after school, before school. We've even started our Saturdays. We've partnered with ACE, where ACE is providing some of the financial backing for our Saturday schools so that we're able to do that on Saturdays. So using the data, all of those types of interventions are put in place.
And I see that we've went to an interventionalist model in terms of addressing areas or deficiency areas. Are those, when we talk about making sure that campuses have resources to provide the additional instruction once we get data back, because I know we only have a limited number of interventionalists that we were able to hire in specific areas, but if we see that the data suggests that the need is that they get shipped out to whatever campus, is that a part of the decision-making process? Is the data used for those, even those types of, to make sure that Campus A is getting whatever resource that they need? Now, I know specifically the Meadows, for obvious reasons, has the staffing and the specified interventionalists that they have. But I know that there's some other ones that aren't necessarily assigned to quote-unquote campuses in need per se, but can roam around based on need. And so I just want to make sure that, once we use the data to determine where the deficiencies are, do we have the resources to staff those people out, or is there some additional resource to make sure that we're finding success based on the data that we're getting?
Okay. Well, our interventionists are a different model. They are assigned to students and those students stay with that interventionist because we're kind of having a whole child model, so we want them to be more like mentors, also interventionists in that subject, and they keep that same group for an entire year. And we do follow that group to see if they're making gains and what type of impact that interventionist is having. So within the school, though, we are able, again, to make sure that the personnel that we have, they are being arranged or used to identify those students and to address those students in need. And again, we are partnering with ACE also before and after school to do some additional instruction.
So those kids potentially are getting a double or triple dose
They are,
of support?
yes.
Okay.
And the reason we use that model, because remember, the state uses a growth model. So if you got students who are severely behind, and we have several of those kids, you get extra points for being able to provide the growth. So you want to take your lowest kids and try to make movement with them as much as you possibly can.
Thank you, Dr.
Because those are the kids that hit you the hardest.
Trustee Gant.
Mr. Sherman, practically everyone's kind of hit on this, but I'm a results person. And when the results are not there, and I mean, when you guys received this report, you said, uh-oh, this is not what we're looking for, we've got an issue somewhere, what do we do to fix it? And that's what I'm interested in. What do we do to fix it? I don't, okay, this has happened. We can't go back and change this. We can't change what happened yesterday. I'm interested in what do we do to fix this to ensure that our kids are the best that they can be, that they're the best in Region 10. So when you bring me this report, bring me whatever your plan is. I really, now this is me personally, I don't want to see or hear a report that doesn't have some type of specific solutions. Okay, this is what we look like. This is what happened. Now, this is what we're going to do to fix it. To me, when this report is given, there may be one or two questions, but